I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla. In recognition of her own loyal public service since our marriage 17 years ago.
Coronations are a declaration of our hopes for the future. And I know she's up there, fondly keeping an eye on us, and she'll be a very proud mother.
5 minutes ago, King Charles and William confirmed tragic news about Camilla's future. When does protecting the crown become the very thing that threatens it? Just moments ago, Buckingham Palace released news that has stunned the entire world. Queen Camilla, the woman who spent 20 years earning her place beside King Charles, now faces a future she never imagined. The announcement came wrapped in careful diplomatic language, the kind royals use when duty forces them to hide heartbreak. But what really happened behind those palace walls? What pushed a father and son to speak with one voice against someone they both loved? Stay with us, because what led to this moment is far more complex than any official statement reveals. The shift nobody noticed. It began so quietly that nobody saw it coming. No scandals, no leaked secrets, just a slow transformation creeping through the palace like fog. When Charles finally became king after decades of waiting, the nation celebrated. Beside him stood Camilla, no longer the controversial figure from tabloid headlines, but a dignified queen consort who had earned her position through patience and resilience. Those early months seemed perfect. She launched cultural projects, smiled graciously, and slowly won over a public that had spent years criticizing her. After 2 decades of comparisons to Diana's memory, Camilla had finally achieved acceptance. But beneath that polished image, something was changing. Palace insiders began noticing how decisions were being made. Camilla wasn't just supporting her husband, she was shaping his path. It started small. Suggestions about his schedule, opinions about which events mattered. But influence, once established, rarely stays contained. By early 2024, Charles's health required him to slow down. Doctors advised fewer appearances and more rest. The public saw sensible caution. Palace staff saw an opportunity. The space created by the king's lighter schedule didn't stay empty. Camilla began filling it with quiet efficiency. She started hosting private gatherings at Clarence House with 3 trusted advisors, a former journalist, a political consultant, and a longtime family friend. These informal meetings weren't on any official calendar, but they happened regularly. Slowly, decisions that used to go straight to the king began flowing through this small group. First guest lists, speech topics, travel plans, all filtered through Camilla's circle before reaching Charles. At first, nobody objected. Her judgment seemed sound, but months turned to a year, and the pattern became clear. The monarchy's inner workings were being quietly rewired, and all the wires ran through one person. William and Catherine watched with growing concern, though they never spoke publicly. Catherine counseled patience. William wasn't convinced he knew history well enough to understand that silence can become dangerous. Princess Anne saw it even more clearly. In one sharp conversation with her brother, she warned him, "You're allowing a separate power structure to form, Charles. That's how institutions collapse." But the king defended his wife completely. To him, she was protecting him, keeping everything running while he dealt with health issues. By trusting her so fully, he failed to see what others couldn't ignore. People in the palace weren't just serving the crown anymore. They were aligning themselves with the queen, and that shift was about to trigger consequences nobody could control. When the cracks showed, September brought a problem that seemed minor at first. During a routine check of royal collections in Edinburgh, some artifacts were temporarily unaccounted for. It was a paperwork issue, the kind that happens in any large organization. What raised alarms wasn't the missing items, it was the response. Instead of letting the curator handle it normally, Camilla's office took control. A notice stated the queen would personally oversee the matter. To casual observers, this sounded responsible. To those who understood protocol, it was shocking. Heritage management had always been the sovereign's responsibility, never the consort's. Within days, Camilla's team arranged a private consultation with a specialist in Antwerp to verify certain items. The meeting happened quietly, without the communications team knowing until afterward. When senior staff learned about it, whispers started. It wasn't about the objects anymore. It was about who was making decisions and bypassing normal procedures. Meanwhile, Charles remained largely unaware. His schedule was carefully managed by doctors. He trusted Camilla completely, and that trust gave her freedom to operate unchecked. By October, new documents referred to the Queen's oversight of ceremonial matters. The language was technically correct, but it blurred boundaries that had been clear for centuries. Princess Anne caught it during a meeting. She interrupted with a direct question. Why is this coming from the Queen's office and not the King's? Nobody had a good answer. William soon received a private warning that Camilla's advisory group was operating beyond proper limits. Catherine urged patience. William's instincts said otherwise. The problem was that nothing Camilla did was clearly wrong. Every action had a reasonable explanation. She played her public role perfectly, always gracious, always appearing devoted, but underneath was calculation. She knew exactly how far to push without breaking rules. By late October, media commentators were calling her the power behind the throne. When November's remembrance ceremony approached, it was Camilla who finalized all arrangements. On internal documents, the King's name appeared after the Queen's. To outsiders, meaningless. To palace veterans, everything. The night that changed everything. November 8th arrived cold and gray. The Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall is the monarchy's most solemn annual event.
Royal Albert Hall. This video is going to give you a bit of information about what to expect on your visit here.
Every detail matters, every gesture sends messages. Camilla understood this perfectly. She personally reviewed camera angles, lighting, and seating arrangements. Her instruction was clear. The King must look strong, the institution eternal, and I must look essential. When they arrived, cameras captured what seemed like perfect unity. King Charles and Queen Camilla walking together, surrounded by respectful applause. The world saw partnership. Palace insiders saw a carefully rehearsed performance. From the moment they entered, Camilla controlled everything. She guided Charles to his seat, acknowledged veterans with precise timing, bowed at exactly the right moments. Nothing was spontaneous. When cameras swept the royal section, one image dominated headlines. Camilla looked forward with authority, the King slightly behind her shoulder. Within hours, reporters said she had overshadowed him. Headlines called her the monarch in everything but name. Social media exploded with clips of her commanding presence. Some praised her strength. Others saw troubling ambition dressed as devotion. Princess Anne's reaction was immediate and furious. The Queen Consort had stolen focus during the nation's most sacred moment. "This isn't service," she reportedly said. "This is theater." That evening, Anne met William at Kensington Palace. There she began preparing what staff called the Integrity Report, outlining protocol violations. William listened carefully. "I've always supported her," he admitted, "but this feels calculated, not caring." Back at Clarence House, Camilla's advisors celebrated. Her consultant showed her a headline praising her steady leadership. She smiled briefly. "Perception is everything," she said. But the satisfaction vanished fast. Her secretary informed her that officials were questioning the Edinburgh matter. The inquiry had been sent to the King's office, the Prime Minister, and Anne. Everything tightened overnight. When Charles learned about it, his response was quiet, but final. "She meant no harm," he told Anne. "But she crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed," Anne replied. "Then you must establish boundaries." The next morning, an emergency meeting was called at Windsor. Camilla arrived composed in dark green. William and Anne stood beside their father. No shouting, just royal restraint facing an unwanted crisis. The conversation lasted under an hour. When it ended, Camilla bowed her head, whispered something private to Charles, and left without looking back. The price of everything. The next day, Britain woke to headlines no one could control. Camilla takes command. Queen overshadows king. For a monarchy where perception equals reality, this was a crisis demanding response. At Windsor, Charles gathered his closest advisors. Anne sat with documents. William showed controlled restraint. Camilla's empty chair said everything. The meeting opened with facts about Edinburgh. The curator confirmed the artifact had been placed in a private facility managed through Camilla's office, not royal staff. It violated procedures. "This isn't about objects," William said. "It's about trust. When the crown bends rules, everything weakens." Anne agreed. "We guard traditions, we don't own them." Charles sat silently, staring at evidence before him. His loyalty fought his duty. "Bring her here," he finally said. When Camilla entered, she embodied composure. Black dress, pearls, unreadable expression. She greeted Charles, then acknowledged the others. "I see we're holding trial," she said softly. Charles pointed to papers. "Explain this." Camilla glanced at documents. "The item was relocated temporarily. I prevented embarrassment. Nothing more." Anne's response cut like ice. "By ignoring channels? That's not protection, that's possession." Camilla's eyes flickered with pain. "I've given 20 years to stabilize this family. I absorbed every attack so you could stay clean. And now you question my loyalty?" William's voice stayed level. "Loyalty doesn't justify control." Camilla's composure cracked. "You think I wanted control? I wanted an order. I wanted respect for a man who sacrificed everything. This system destroys every woman beside it." Charles closed his eyes. Yet it cannot function without truth. The confrontation ended in exhaustion. That evening, Charles met William alone. The talk lasted under 20 minutes. It concluded with Charles saying, "This must come from both of us, not as family, but as sovereign and heir." Within hours, the joint statement was written. It wouldn't remove titles, but would restructure roles around transparency and service.
Prince title and is being forced out of the Royal Lodge. Of course, it comes weeks after it was announced that King Charles...
Discipline disguised as adjustment, gentle in language, absolute in effect. When it reached Camilla, she read it twice. She didn't sign it. The message was clear. That night, she returned to Clarence's house alone. Sitting until sunrise on the table lay an unsealed envelope addressed to my king. By morning, everything was decided. The monarchy would survive, but something had died. The announcement came at 6:05 on November 12th. Under 100 words that shook Britain. Following consultation, the Queen Consort will withdraw from independent duties. The King and Prince reaffirm dedication to transparency and heritage protection. No wrongdoing mentioned, no investigation, just diplomatic finality. Within an hour, the news analyzed every word. To citizens, reasonable reorganization. To insiders, banishment dressed politely. Camilla's quarters were shut down before midnight. Staff transferred. Her assistant was replaced. Workers described strange peace. Camilla refused all calls. Only her closest aide saw her by the window. "They've erased my purpose," she whispered, "and I'm expected to be grateful." At Windsor, Charles dined privately with William and Anne. Charles looked every bit his age. "It's finished," he said. "She was never our enemy. Just a storm we couldn't weather," Anne responded directly. "The crown survives through strength, not kindness." William stayed mostly quiet, knowing people would blame him, but understanding what was at stake. By morning, opinion was divided sharply. Some praised Charles's leadership. Others called it elegant brutality. The international media debated reform versus revenge. Palace operations accelerated. Anne took heritage oversight. Catherine's schedule expanded. Charles continued duties, though every gesture seemed heavier. The monarchy appeared stable again, but stability came at the price of one woman's silence. Camilla prepared to leave for Ray Millhouse. Staff said she paused before closing her office, looking at her coronation portrait. "You wanted peace," she whispered. "Now you have it." The queen who fought into history stepped quietly out of its spotlight, leaving a restored palace and unexplainable silence. London woke under pale winter skies. Flags moved weakly in the November wind. No reporters waited outside Clarence House. The frenzy had passed. What remained was profoundly quiet, as if the city recognized something important was lost. Officially, the monarchy recovered balance. Charles prepared for Christmas with full duties. Anne assumed expanded responsibilities. William and Catherine presented a unified purpose. Palace communications spoke of renewal and integrity. But underneath lived a truth needing no announcement. Every institutional preservation demands sacrifice. Every throne requires casualties. Camilla withdrew to Ray Mill among quiet countryside, returning to simple routines, walking dogs, answering letters, reading in silence. To the world, graceful withdrawal. To those who knew her, exile wrapped in composure. One friend whispered to reporters, "She isn't bitter, she's simply done." History rarely ends where expected. The woman once portrayed as villain and survivor now exists as both. A warning in pearls trapped between loyalty and ambition. Whether she overstepped or was misunderstood no longer matters. What matters is how history remembers her. The queen who tried protecting the throne and became the reason it needed protecting from itself. This story reflects something universal. How often do we think we're holding things together, families, careers, relationships, only to realize we've gripped too tightly? Power, even small amounts, can trick us into thinking control equals care. True strength often means knowing when to let go. Camilla's story, when stripped of titles, jewels, ceremony, and all the rigid choreography of royal life, becomes something painfully human. A story about restraint and about the consequences of losing it. For years, she cultivated silence with deliberate discipline, almost as if stillness itself were a language she alone mastered. Patience was not just a virtue for her. It was a strategy, an armor forged over decades of criticism, isolation, and public suspicion. She believed that endurance would earn understanding, that time would clear the fog of judgment that had followed her for so long. But silence, when kept too tightly, begins to unravel. It stops protecting and starts obscuring. The line between silence and secrecy is fragile, nearly invisible, until it shatters beneath the weight of a single misinterpreted choice. And once that line is crossed, even actions intended to shield others begin to look like shadows cast deliberately. That is the tragedy embedded within her reign. The queen who once symbolized resilience learned that endurance without humility does not soften. It stiffens. It becomes a kind of dominance, a quiet form of authority that demands rather than invites understanding. For Charles, the moment he signed that statement beside his son will echo long after the public forgets the headlines. That signature was not simply a document. It was a turning point, a quiet confession that leadership sometimes demands sacrificing the person who once felt like refuge. He chose duty over comfort, clarity over companionship, legacy over love. That is the price of the crown, a cost every monarch must eventually confront. But few do so under such blistering scrutiny, and fewer still manage to carry their humanity through the fire. That he acted from sorrow rather than anger may be the only redeeming truth in an otherwise painful chapter. But what of the institution they fought so hard to protect? The monarchy is not merely a family. It is a machine built on history, tradition, and the unspoken rule that survival comes before sentiment. The British monarchy endures not because it is sacred, but because it is adaptable. It bends, reshapes, recalibrates, sometimes gracefully, often brutally, to remain relevant in a world that no longer needs kings or queens. Camilla's fall was not tragic because it occurred. It was tragic because it was inevitable. The institution she helped stabilize was never designed to fully accommodate her brand of influence. She entered a system that tolerates ambition only when it aligns with its own rhythm, and when it doesn't, the cost is unavoidable. Perhaps that is the quiet message lingering beneath the public statements and polished appearances. Ambition, even when wrapped in unwavering loyalty, must eventually answer for its consequences. Love, when intertwined with legacy, will always be stretched thin. Every crown is judged not by the brilliance of its jewels, but by the weight it imposes on the one chosen to carry it. And the monarchy, ancient and unyielding, demands payment for longevity. Tonight, far from the echoing corridors of palaces and the ever-watchful eyes of tradition, Camilla sits alone in her drawing room. The lights are dim, the evening heavy, and the silence different from the kind she once wore so proudly. It is no longer armor. It is a reflection. Outside, the world moves forward with its usual indifference. Royal correspondents shift to the next headline. Commentators speculate, the public debates, and the crown, now steadier, stands as if breathing more freely. But one truth endures, unbroken and unforgotten. History never forgets those who grip power too tightly. Nor does the crown they attempted to serve in the House of Windsor. Peace is never simply given. It is earned through sacrifice, traded through compromise, and purchased, always, one broken heart at a time. Those who enter its gates learn this truth slowly, painfully, and often too late. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you reflect on the hidden cost of loyalty, the fragile nature of influence, and the price power demands, then support this work. Hit that like button. Subscribe for stories that reach deeper than the polished statements crafted for public comfort. Share this with someone who understands that behind every royal tradition lies a human truth far more complicated than the palace would ever reveal. Because the truth behind the crown is never simple. It is layered, conflicted, and shaped by choices made in silence, by loyalties negotiated behind closed doors, and by burdens carried far from public view. And the stories worth telling are always the ones spoken from the edges, where reality escapes the grip of rehearsed narratives and reveals the fragile humanity beneath ceremony. These are the stories that outlast headlines, quiet truths that linger long after official statements fade. We return soon with more stories that matter, more chapters where humanity spills into history, more moments where truth flickers beneath the weight of the crown and refuses to be hidden. In every twist of royal life, there are echoes of decisions made for the sake of duty, echoes that shape the people behind the portraits. Until then, keep questioning what you hear. Keep searching for what remains unsaid. Pushing boundaries that had never been tested before. She wanted greater involvement in decisions traditionally reserved for born royals. She sought recognition that went beyond her official role. Each request seemed reasonable on its own, but together, they painted a picture of someone attempting to reshape the monarchy from within. What really alarmed Charles was Camilla's increasing insistence on bringing her own family deeper into royal affairs. Her children and relatives started appearing in spaces that had always been sacred to the Windsor bloodline. To Charles, this wasn't just family blending. It was a fundamental threat to the institution he'd sworn to protect. But here's where things get really interesting. This wasn't just about family dynamics. This was about power, legacy, and the future of the British crown itself. While internal tensions simmered, the public mood was shifting dramatically. What started as polite acceptance of Camilla was gradually turning into something much more dangerous for the monarchy: open skepticism and growing resentment. Every public appearance became a test. Crowds that once applauded politely now responded with uncomfortable silence. The media, always hungry for royal drama, began digging deeper into Camilla's background, her family's business dealings, and their perceived attempts to benefit from royal connections. But perhaps most damaging of all was the ghost that never left, Princess Diana. 26 years after her death, Diana's memory remained more powerful than ever.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
The tragic news rocketed around the globe 28 years ago.
The public couldn't forget the woman they saw as the rightful princess, and many would never accept the woman they viewed as her replacement. Social media exploded with comparisons between Catherine, who embodied grace and modern royalty, and Camilla, who carried the weight of past controversies. The contrast was stark and impossible to ignore. Catherine represented hope and renewal. Camilla represented a painful chapter many wished could be forgotten. Catherine and William's master strategy. Here's what makes this story even more fascinating. While chaos swirled around Camilla, William and Catherine were playing an entirely different game. They never attacked openly, never criticized publicly, never created drama. Instead, they did something far more powerful. They simply existed as the perfect alternative. Catherine's approach was brilliant in its simplicity. Every time Camilla stumbled, Catherine was there showing exactly how royalty should behave. Every controversial moment was balanced by Catherine's grace. Every awkward public appearance was countered by Catherine's natural warmth with crowds. William, meanwhile, was having careful conversations with his father. Not demanding action, not issuing ultimatums, but gently pointing out what everyone could see. The public was losing faith, and something had to be done to save the monarchy they all loved. Their strategy was patience. They knew that eventually, the pressure would become unbearable, and when that moment came, they would be ready to step forward as the solution the monarchy desperately needed. But what finally pushed Charles over the edge wasn't public opinion or family pressure. It was a discovery so shocking that it left him feeling betrayed in the deepest possible way. According to palace insiders, Charles uncovered evidence that Camilla had been working behind the scenes to expand her influence in ways that went far beyond her official role. There were meetings with advisors who had no business being involved in royal affairs. There were discussions about elevating her family's status within the monarchy. There were even draft documents that seemed to position her children for future roles within the institution. Most damaging of all were reports of communications sent using Charles's name and authority without his knowledge or permission. For a monarch who had spent his entire life respecting the sacred nature of royal authority, this felt like betrayal of the highest order. Princess Anne, ever the guardian of royal tradition, reportedly brought the full extent of these activities to Charles's attention. Her message was crystal clear. If action wasn't taken immediately, the damage to the monarchy could be irreversible. Armed with this knowledge, Charles made a decision that shocked everyone, including himself.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow.
He called the emergency family meeting not to discuss routine business, but to deliver the most dramatic ultimatum in modern royal history. When the family gathered, the tension was suffocating. Everyone sensed that something momentous was about to happen, but nobody was prepared for what actually unfolded. Charles spoke with a voice that brooked no argument. His words carried the full weight of royal authority as he addressed the situation that had been tearing his family apart. The silence that followed his announcement was deafening, a silence filled not with peace, but with the shock of witnessing history being made. Camilla's reaction was immediate and explosive. This wasn't the quiet acceptance of royal protocol. This was raw, human emotion. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief all rolled into one devastating moment. But William and Catherine's response told a different story. Their composed silence spoke volumes about how they had been preparing for exactly this moment. They weren't shocked because they had seen it coming. They had been waiting for their moment to step forward as the monarchy's salvation. The threats that could destroy everything What happened next turned an already explosive situation into something truly dangerous for the entire royal institution. Faced with the loss of everything she had fought to achieve, Camilla didn't retreat quietly. Instead, she made threats that sent chills through every person in that room. She spoke of secrets, of private conversations, of documents and communications that could expose the royal family's most guarded moments. Her message was clear. If she was going down, she wouldn't go alone. The implications were terrifying. In an age where privacy is nearly impossible and scandals spread like wildfire, the threat of insider revelations could destroy the monarchy faster than any external attack. Camilla possessed decades' worth of intimate knowledge about the royal family's private moments, their struggles, their weaknesses. For Charles, this threat represented something worse than political crisis. It was the possibility that his entire reign could be remembered not for his service to the nation, but for the scandal that tore his family apart. The moment the family meeting ended, Buckingham Palace transformed into a war room. Senior advisors worked frantically to develop strategies for managing what could become the biggest royal crisis in modern history. The central question was impossible to answer. How do you manage a scandal when the potential source of that scandal is the queen consort herself? Every option carried enormous risks. Denial could backfire spectacularly if Camilla chose to go public. Confirmation would validate every criticism the monarchy had faced. William emerged as the voice of calm in the storm. His position was clear. The monarchy had to be protected at all costs, even if it meant accepting short-term damage to preserve long-term survival. His conviction that this crisis could ultimately strengthen the institution by clearing away past controversies became the guiding principle for the palace response. Catherine, meanwhile, became the monarchy's most powerful asset. Her public appearances during this period were carefully orchestrated to project stability and continuity. Every photograph of her calm, gracious demeanor sent a message to the nation. Whatever chaos might be happening behind palace doors, the future of the monarchy was secure. Princess Anne's unwavering support. Throughout this crisis, Princess Anne's role proved crucial in ways the public never saw. As the royal family member most devoted to duty and tradition, her quiet support for Charles's decision provided essential validation. Anne had never fully embraced Camilla's elevation to queen consort.
I'm always quite intrigued by Princess Anne. I know she's representing the Queen partially along with Prince Charles.
And insiders suggest she viewed the current crisis as an inevitable reckoning. Her private conversations with Charles reportedly reinforced his resolve during moments when the pressure to reverse his decision became overwhelming. Her silent strength became a source of stability for Charles, reminding him that leadership sometimes requires making choices that are painful but necessary for the greater good. Beyond the domestic crisis, the situation began affecting Britain's international relationships. Foreign dignitaries quietly expressed concerns about associating too closely with a monarchy in crisis. Commonwealth leaders watched nervously as the institution they had respected for generations appeared to be consuming itself from within. These international pressures added another layer of urgency to the palace's crisis management efforts. The British Crown wasn't just a domestic institution. It was a symbol of stability and continuity recognized worldwide. Any damage to its reputation could have far-reaching diplomatic and economic consequences. As news of the crisis began to leak, public opinion split dramatically. Some viewed Charles's actions as long overdue accountability, a necessary step to protect the monarchy from further damage. Others saw it as cruel treatment of a woman who had dedicated years to royal service. But perhaps most significantly, many saw it as validation of their belief that Catherine represented the true future of the monarchy. The contrast between the chaos surrounding Camilla and Catherine's steady grace became a powerful narrative that shaped public perception of the entire crisis. Social media erupted with commentary, memes, and passionate debates about the future of the royal family. The hashtags trending told the story of a nation grappling with fundamental questions about tradition, change, and what they wanted their monarchy to represent. As the immediate crisis began to settle, a new power structure within the royal family became clear. William and Catherine hadn't just survived the storm, they had emerged stronger than ever, positioned as the undisputed future of the British crown. Their handling of the crisis, marked by dignity, discretion, and unwavering loyalty to the institution, had won them respect not just from the public, but from within the palace itself. Staff members, foreign dignitaries, and political leaders increasingly looked to them for stability and leadership. This shift represented more than just a change in personalities. It marked a generational transition that many believed was long overdue. The monarchy's future now clearly rested with a couple who understood both tradition and modernity, who could honor the past while embracing necessary change. For King Charles, this crisis became a defining moment of his reign. The decision to prioritize the institution over personal relationships demonstrated an understanding of royal duty that some had questioned he possessed. His choice to act decisively, despite the personal cost and potential consequences, showed a side of leadership that transformed how many viewed his fitness for the throne.
Today, of course, is the big day. The much-awaited coronation of King Charles III and Camilla has concluded.
This wasn't the indecisive prince many remembered. This was a king willing to make hard choices to protect the monarchy he had sworn to defend. The health battles that had weakened his body seemed to have strengthened his resolve.
Buckingham Palace has said King Charles spent a short period of time in hospital today.
In his moment of greatest personal difficulty, he found the courage to make the most difficult decision of his reign. But here's where the story takes another shocking turn. The crisis didn't end when the family meeting concluded. In fact, it was just the beginning of a media war that would test every royal family member's resolve like never before. Within 48 hours of the confrontation, mysterious leaks began appearing in tabloids across Britain. Details about the family meeting that only someone present could have known suddenly became front-page news. The question everyone was asking was simple but terrifying. Who was talking? Palace security went into overdrive, launching an internal investigation to identify the source. Phone records were examined, staff members were questioned, and trusted advisors found themselves under suspicion. The monarchy had faced external attacks before, but this felt different. This was betrayal from within, and it struck at the very heart of what made the institution function: trust. The leaks weren't random gossip. They were strategically chosen details designed to paint Charles as an unstable leader, making rash decisions under pressure. Stories emerged about his health affecting his judgment, about family members questioning his mental state, about advisors secretly planning interventions. But here's what made these leaks particularly dangerous. Some of them contained just enough truth to be believable. Yes, Charles had been under enormous stress. Yes, his health had been declining. Yes, there had been heated family discussions. But the context was twisted, the motivations distorted, and the implications weaponized against the crown itself. Catherine's moment of truth. While the palace scrambled to contain the damage, Catherine faced her own moment of testing. Paparazzi followed her every move, waiting for any sign of weakness, any crack in her composed facade that they could exploit. But instead of retreating, Catherine did something that surprised everyone. She stepped forward. Not with dramatic gestures or public statements, but with quiet acts of leadership that spoke louder than words. She increased her public engagements, appearing at charity events with the same warmth and grace that had made her beloved. She took on additional responsibilities without fanfare, filling gaps left by the crisis with seamless efficiency. Most importantly, she began meeting privately with senior palace staff, reassuring them about the monarchy's stability and future. These weren't official duties assigned to her. They were leadership actions she chose to take. And in making those choices, she demonstrated something crucial to everyone watching. She wasn't just William's wife or a future queen.
Getting tips from Her Majesty, keeping it real with her kids, and stepping into the spotlight.
After years in the public eye, here's proof that Kate Middleton is ready to be queen.
She was already functioning as the monarchy's steady hand during its time of greatest uncertainty. The contrast between Catherine's calm leadership and the chaos swirling around other family members became impossible to ignore. Media coverage gradually shifted from focusing on royal dysfunction to highlighting Catherine's steady presence as a stabilizing force. But perhaps the most brilliant move came from William himself. At the height of the media frenzy, when speculation about the monarchy's future reached fever pitch, he made an announcement that changed the entire narrative. He declared his intention to launch a comprehensive review of royal protocols and procedures, with a focus on modernizing the institution while preserving its core traditions. This wasn't a reaction to the crisis. This was presented as a long-planned initiative to strengthen the monarchy for the future. The genius of this move was multifaceted. It positioned William as a forward-thinking leader focused on solutions rather than problems. It suggested that recent changes within the royal family were part of a larger modernization effort rather than desperate damage control. Most importantly, it shifted public attention from past controversies to future possibilities. William's announcement included plans for increased transparency, expanded charitable work, and closer engagement with younger generations. These weren't empty promises. They were concrete proposals backed by detailed planning that had clearly been in development for months. The message was unmistakable. While others were creating chaos, William and Catherine were building the future. Just when it seemed the crisis might be contained domestically, an unexpected development emerged from the Commonwealth realms. Instead of expressing concern about royal instability, several Commonwealth leaders began publicly praising the monarchy's commitment to renewal and modernization. This wasn't accidental. Behind the scenes, William had been conducting quiet diplomatic outreach, explaining the situation to key Commonwealth figures and outlining his vision for the monarchy's future. His message was clear and compelling. The recent changes weren't signs of weakness, but evidence of the institution's ability to adapt and evolve.